he's supposed to pay, and he said on the news, either I pay my credit card or I buy food. And given that choice, I'm going to buy food. So he's not going to pay his credit card debt. That wasn't a problem in 1941. People had money in the bank to the degree. Now, the airlines don't fly for 4 days, and they're going broke. 4 days, and they're broke. They're bankrupt, like a lot of other businesses. And when they had this bailout, I was watching a Senate hearing, and it was one of the congressional hearing, and he said, so you want us to bail you out? This congressman was arrogant, as if you're coming here for money, and you're against negotiations with the union. He raised some of these issues. Now, I'm against subsidies to people in the public sector, but we got to give the airlines their money. Suppose that all the airlines went belly up. Now we have no railroads. We have no shipping. We used to have ships that used to go along the coast, and we'd have no airlines. How do we get around? So as much as I'm against subsidies, we can't let the airlines go belly up. Now they're asking for $15 billion. Now I didn't know how much money the airlines paid, but I said to Cindy, because Cindy and I were watching at the same time, I said, I don't know what the airline industry pays in taxes, but you better believe it's a heck of a lot more than $15 billion. Sure enough, one of the congressmen asks, well, how much did the airlines pay in taxes last year? And the figure was $30 billion. So no wonder they didn't have any money. That's why nobody has any money, because the government grabs it all out in taxes. And if somebody is making money after they pay taxes in order to reduce it, they spend money. So they shouldn't have to pay taxes. They give big bonuses that they don't build up reserves. When I moved to an office, I had an insurance business at one time. When I put people in tax shelters, they were very big in the 60s. We drilled oil wells, they went into cattle programs. And businessmen would call me in September, October, November. Are there any tax shelters still open? Once I had a man run to me with a check for $50,000 to get into a drilling fund because he could write off the whole $50,000, and if he didn't, he'd have to pay the government $25,000. So he'd rather take a shot in a drilling program than save it and put it in his own business. Even when I moved into my office in 1960, I moved into a very nice office, into larger quarters, and every time I looked at something, I figured my after-tax cost. If I looked at drapes that were $1,000 or so, they only cost me $500. Why shouldn't I have the best drapes? Why shouldn't I have the best chair? Everything was deductible. I had recessed lining put on. I had murals on grass cloth. Because everything. Why not? If I didn't, the government was paying half the cost. So I realized later when I wrote the book, The Biggest Con, how taxes encourage waste. If American industry couldn't write off all of this stuff, you think they'd have all the drapery and artwork and the paintings that they have? And no. So the income tax merely promoted waste and higher prices. Now what did this do? This caused our industry to vanish, our industrial base. Now we have more people who work for government, more people, people who work in our factories. We lost, as they reported, 1 million factory jobs just in the last 12 months, industrial jobs. We have more people working for government than are producing goods. Now, as we lost I'm going to show you figures. As we kept losing our manufacturing, we had 200 shoe factories. Oh, I just gave you a figure. I heard a couple of days ago. I knew the figure was high. I didn't check statistics, but somebody mentioned on television that now 3/4 of our apparel are now imported. 3/4. 30 years ago, everything we wore was made in America. All our shoes were made here. Who would buy? Go back 30 years. Would anybody buy shoes made in England or Italy? You say, oh my God, how much money? Now, all our shoes are made overseas. We don't make any shoes here. If we ever had a new war, how can we drafted very quickly in 1943 10 million servicemen. Where would 10 million pair of shoes come from if we had to make them? You know, a lot of the ships that weren't, all the ships that weren't sunk at Pearl Harbor, but some were badly damaged. But all those ships were back in service, all of them, in less than 9 months. They were all repaired in our shipyards and went back. Now we don't have any shipyards. They're all closed. The Brooklyn Navy Yard is closed. The Philadelphia Naval Yard, the Boston Naval Yard. What happened to all our naval yards? Now, you heard of, Nero fiddle while Rome burned. We have a council of economic advisors. Couldn't they see our whole industrial base was disappearing? So what our government did was rationalize. They rationalized. We're going into a service economy. How many people have heard that? Well, okay, go fight this new war with our services. Yeah, it takes planes, it takes oil, it takes physical, it takes material things. So what they did, rather than be appalled at what was happening, we were losing our industrial base, they rationalized its disappearance. And then little by little, we developed this absolutely ludicrous claim. How many people have heard we have a consuming economy? It's the consumer that drives our economy. If that is not the most ridiculous proposition, consuming drives nothing. Anybody can consume. Any idiot can consume. What's the great trick about that? What is hard is producing. It's production that creates consumption. Nobody would talk about consuming unless there's production to consume. Let me give you a very simple example. A farmer wants to consume, but he didn't grow anything. What is he going to do? He has nothing to trade. Now, if he goes out and he prints 20 bushels of wheat, if he has 20 bushels of wheat, now he can consume because he can exchange what he produced. In the internet, one of the news internet programs reported that some woman went into like a Home Depot that was going out of business, but apparently she didn't know it. And she wanted to pick out stuff for her kitchen. How this stuff gets in the newspapers, I don't know. Anyway, she wanted to pick out stuff for her kitchen. They tell her, lady, we're going out of business. And she said, well, I wanted to fix my kitchen so I can help the economy. People really think that. They're helping the economy by fixing their kitchen. The way you help the economy is some inventor who thinks of a product that we may need. Someone who's going to risk going into business and creates employment. You can't spend yourself rich. And this idea that go out and buy something. We're going to help the economy. Consume more. If you get this book, you'll discover that it's savings and the creation of capital that moves. A man came in, bought 10 of these, only a couple of, he may be here. I think was it this gentleman? No. And he was a financial major in college. This will teach you more in economics in 1 hour than if you studied, even if you got a master's degree in most of our universities. Now, I mean that seriously. How many people have read this book? Now, in this book, I start with a society, Abel, Baker, and Charlie. They have no capital, they have no savings, have no anything. Every day they jump in the water and they catch one fish, which they consume. So they consume everything they produce. There's no savings, there's no investment, and they're just living on a subsistence level. And then Abel decides he has visions of making a net. It will work. So in order to make the net, he has to give up eating for 1 day because he's not going to have time to catch that fish. So he makes the sacrifice and he builds a net and it works. But now he catches 2 fish a day. So now that he catches 2 fish a day, he doesn't have to work every day. He can start building his houses. He can start building things. And little by little, from that one piece of capital, society grows and grows. Well, I build the whole society, then certain calamities happen and society starts to collapse. And by this point, the new president of this society is called Franklin D. Actually, now look at this. So he calls in his economists. Franklin D. says, well, look, we got this crisis. Call in our economists. And now the economists come in and say, expand credit, lower taxes. And who are these economists? They're 2 parrots trained to say, lower taxes and expand credit. Now, that's exactly what